It is, Bürgel went on, stretching his arms and yawning in confusing contrast to the gravity of his words. It is the secretary's constant complaint that they are obliged to hold most hearings in the village by night. And why do they complain of it? Because it puts too much strain on them. Because they'd rather use the night for sleeping. No, they definitely don't complain of that. Of course, there are both industrious and less industrious men among the secretaries, as everywhere. But none of them complains of being under excessive strain, certainly not in public. That is simply not our way. So far as that's concerned, we see no difference between ordinary time and time spent working. We are strangers to such distinctions. So, what do the secretaries have against hearings conducted by night? Is it perhaps consideration for the members of the public involved? No, that's not it either. The secretaries are not at all considerate of those members of the public, although they are no more inconsiderate of the members of the public than they are of themselves. They are equally inconsiderate to both. And in fact, this inconsiderate attitude, that is to say, the iron observance and performance of their duty, shows the greatest consideration that members of the public could wish for. Fundamentally, although a casual observer will not of course notice it, that is fully appreciated, and as in this case, nocturnal hearings are particularly welcome to members of the public. There is no objection to nocturnal hearings in principle. So, why don't the secretaries like them? Kay did not know the answer to that either. He knew so little about the subject that he couldn't even tell whether Bürgel was asking a question seriously or rhetorically. If you'd let me lie down in your bed, he thought, I'll answer any questions you like at midday tomorrow, or even better in the evening. But Bürgel did not seem to be taking any notice of Kay. He was too interested in the question that he himself had just raised. As far as I know, and from my own experience, the reservations entertained by the secretaries about nocturnal hearings are more or less as follows. Night is less suitable for negotiation with members of the public because it is difficult or actually impossible to maintain the official character of negotiations at night. That is not because of outward details. Of course, the formalities can be as strictly observed by night as by day, just as one likes. So that's not it. But on the other hand, official judgment suffers by night. One is instinctively inclined to judge things from a more private point of view then. The points advanced by members of the public seem to carry more weight than they should. Consideration of the further situation of those members of the public of their sufferings and sorrows mingles with our assessments where it does not belong. The requisite barrier between members of the public and officials, however flawlessly it may be, present to outward appearance, is relaxed, and where usually only questions and answers are exchanged, which is just as it should be. A strange and entirely unsuitable exchange between the persons sometimes seems to occur. So at least the secretaries say, and they are people whose profession means that they have the gift of an extraordinary sensitive feeling for such things. But even they, and this is often discussed in our circles, even they notice little of those unfortunate influences during nocturnal hearings. On the contrary, they make great efforts from the first to counter them, and in the end, they consider that they have done particularly good work. However, if you read the records later, you are often amazed by the weakness so clearly exposed. And it is these errors, made to the only partly justified advantage of the members of the public, which cannot be dealt with summarily in this usual way, at least not according to our regulations. Of course, they may be corrected by a supervisory office, but that will be useful only to the law and cannot affect the person concerned for the worse. Wouldn't you say that in such circumstances, the complaints of the secretaries are highly justifiable?